This might be the best PC gaming handheld that you can buy, but it's also the price of a used car. So the question is the Lenovo Legion Go 2 worth it? In today's review, we find out. Quick, if you enjoy my content, check out my sock brand APTHCRY. While a purchase from us doesn't directly pay for any of these gaming handhelds that I buy to review, it will support a brand that I co-founded 5 years ago that's been a passion project of mine. So if you want to check out the most comfortable socks out there, make sure to use code TechFowler for $10 off of your first order on APTHCRY.com, linked in the top of the description below. So I've been using the Lenovo Legion Go 2 every single day since it released, and I've got to say, it is an almost perfect handheld. It's as powerful as a desktop gaming PC, it's got one of the best looking and largest OLED displays on any handheld, and they've redesigned the ergonomics to make it much more comfortable than the original. But the key word is almost. It does have its flaws, and while none of them might be deal breakers, the price point may actually be one. The original Lenovo Legion Go 2 released in 2023 at a starting price of $699. The new Lenovo Legion Go 2 has a starting price of $1,100 and can be spec'd up to an almost absurd $1,480. That's almost $1,500. That's crazy. The one that I think most people will be purchasing though is the mid-level one, the one that I have right here, priced at $1,350. It's not cheap, but it does have a good balance of everything without paying for the top of the line spec. So in case you're wondering what the difference is between pricing tiers, here's the deal. There are 3 different versions, and the difference in price is reflected in a faster processor, more RAM, and more storage. The base $1,100 model comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 1 terabyte SSD, and an AMD Ryzen Z2 processor. Now, if you're willing to step up $250 to the $1,350 version, you get the higher-end Ryzen Z2 Extreme CPU, double the RAM, 32 gigabytes, and the same 1 terabyte of storage. The only difference, at least from what I can tell, between this spec and the top-of-the-line $1,480 version is that that one comes with 2 terabytes of storage versus 1. So really, if you don't mind having less storage or are willing to supplement the storage by using a high-speed micro SD card or replacing the SSD yourself in the future, then the mid-level version is absolutely the way to go. That said, if you plan to immediately upgrade the SSD to a 2 terabyte, it's actually cheaper to go with the more expensive version because the SSD is about the same price as the price jump. So realistically, it'll save you some teardown time if nothing else. It's safe to say that no matter what option you choose, you're going to be paying a lot for it. In fact, the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is one of the most expensive PC gaming handhelds out there. Arguably the most expensive mainstream option. I mean, there are other like outliers out there that are probably, $2,000. This $1,349 version that I recommend is a solid $350 more than the already excellent ASUS ROG Xbox Ally X. However, for the higher price point, you are getting some decent upgrades, like a carrying case. It comes included. A very nice add-in considering how much you have to pay to play. This one's $1,000 and doesn't come with a carrying case. I just spent like $70 to get one. So realistically, I paid almost $1,100 before taxes for this guy. So I don't know, that's a pretty big plus. But let's get to the big one. Literally, the 8.8-inch OLED display. It's gorgeous, it's huge, it's vibrant, and it's fast. This display has a decent resolution of 1920 by 1200, which is 1200p because the screen ratio is 16 by 10 and not the standard 16 by 9, meaning it's slightly taller, and that does cause some letterboxing on certain games, but not a huge deal. Oddly enough, the resolution is a downgrade from the last gen Lenovo Legion Go. The 2023 version came with a QHD Plus 2560 by 1600 display, and while sure, you can play games at that resolution, you can get higher and more stable frame rates from playing games at 1080p. Plus, the difference between QHD 4K on a handheld display versus 1080p on an OLED handheld display is pretty minute, even at 8.8 inches. So if getting an OLED display means downgrading resolution, which also might mean better performance, I'm here for it. Some good news is that this display has a variable refresh rate of 30 to 144 Hertz, which is really nice. It can also hit a peak HDR brightness of 1100 nits, but in most situations, especially when you're gaming at full brightness, it usually hovers at around 500 nits. But now let's talk about how great this OLED display looks. Wow. The colors are so vibrant.
Wow. 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 Oh, wow.
The black levels are inky black, the viewing angles are excellent. I mean, it just looks incredible, and it's seriously huge, which makes it incredibly immersive. I do have a problem with this display though, and that's the fact that while this OLED display is larger, has a higher refresh rate, and a higher resolution than the display of a device like the Steam Deck OLED, it's very, very shiny, which wouldn't bother me so much if I didn't know what it was like to play on the almost matte, anti-glare OLED display of the Steam Deck OLED, which looks incredible. But hey, indoors it's fine, and seriously, if I didn't have this, I wouldn't know how great this was, so I wouldn't I wouldn't think about it too much. But now let's talk about what's powering that display, or I guess the games that you play on the display. Well, like I mentioned before, the base model comes with the AMD Ryzen Z2, whereas the two higher end versions, ones that I recommend, come with the more powerful Ryzen Z2 Extreme. The Z2 Extreme in the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is the same exact CPU that you get in the ROG Xbox Ally X, so you're not getting an upgrade there. But when compared to older gaming handhelds like the previous Lenovo Legion Go with the Z1 Extreme, it's a nice bump in performance. Not a huge leap forward, but an iterative improvement that will get you a few extra frames. The 32 gigabytes of RAM that this device has also helps things run more smoothly, and I've been able to play AAA games that I usually test, like Battlefield 6 and Cyberpunk 2077, at around 30 to 40 frames per second at medium to high settings with the balanced TDP mode on. Interestingly enough, I've actually heard from a couple different people that the balanced TDP is the best way to go on the Lenovo Legion Go 2, and that the performance TDP actually doesn't help that much. In fact, for a lot of games, you're gonna get the best performance from balanced and not from performance mode, which sounds counterintuitive, but according to their testing, that seems to be the truth. Now, for my own personal testing, while I haven't benchmarked this handheld against other handhelds, I will say that the difference that I've noticed between performance and balanced is negligible, if any. That being said, if you do decide to bump up the TDP to the highest wattage and jack up the graphic settings to overkill in Battlefield 6, you can play it, if you don't mind, around 16 frames per second. But hey, those 16 frames, while you see them, because you're gonna be seeing them for a minute, they look good. Enjoy it while it lasts. You're gonna die quick. You're not gonna see that enemy coming. The Legion Go 2 is pretty much the most powerful mainstream gaming handheld that you can grab right now. And while it might not be a huge performance leap over the ROG Xbox Ally X and its 24 gigabytes of RAM, it will generally get you slightly smoother performance and slightly higher frame rates in most games, in most settings. There are some weird situations in which the ROG Xbox Ally X will get better performance, but those are kind of few and far between, and generally the performance differences between these two devices are not that much. Now, unfortunately, one of my favorite games, Madden 26, I know, I hate how much I like it. It's not a great game, and it's developed very poorly. It runs bad on this device, which sucks. I don't think it's the Legion Go's fault. I think it's Madden's, or honestly my own fault for not getting the settings exactly right or getting it to run the way that it should on this device, but either way, it runs bad. And to be fair, that's not just on my Go 2, that's also on the Xbox Ally X. So if you wanted to play Madden 26 on your shiny new PC handheld, hope you like screen tear and terrible frame rates and random stuttering, honestly you should get it in like a PlayStation, or even the Nintendo Switch 2 plays it better. I mean, it looks worse, but it does play a lot smoother. To be fair though, it's not even that smooth on those devices either. Madden 26 kind of sucks. I'll be honest with you. Now it's important to note that out of the box, the Legion Go 2 only allocates 2 gigabytes to VRAM, which is wild how low that is. I'd say it's almost necessary to bump up the VRAM to at least 8 gigabytes using the AMD software that you can search for in the Windows search bar, or doing it through the BIOS. Either one works. I would say that 8 gigabytes is the minimum. They only give you like some weird tiered options, like 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, 24, and then 32. Like you can set all the RAM to VRAM if you want. I'm pretty sure you can. You should never do that, but you could do that if you wanted to. Either way, the 2 gigabytes that it has allocated for VRAM is very low out of the box, and it's something that they shouldn't have done. So you have to change it yourself. And I'll be honest with you, I would have not known to do that if I hadn't watched 128KB's video on the Lenovo Legion Go 2. I would have had no idea that that was a problem. So thank God that I watched that video. Check out their channel, it's linked in the description below. Hopefully though, change that in a software update in the future, who knows. But that is actually a perfect lead into one of the biggest problems that I have with this device, and it's actually not Lenovo's fault, it's Microsoft's. And the problem is Windows. This device is literally a handheld Windows PC, which is great in a lot of ways because it's incredibly capable and compatible with just about every game and launcher you'd ever want to use or play. The problem is standard Windows 11 sucks on a gaming handheld. Whether you're trying to move the cursor with this somewhat small touchpad or tap those stupid tiny X's that you have on all the windows with your finger on the touchscreen, it all sucks. Using Windows 11 desktop on this device sucks. It especially sucks if you bought this device hoping that it would be a console-like experience. As you may have seen from my ROG Xbox Ally X review, even that device, which is marketed as an Xbox, at its core is still a Windows PC. And that becomes especially noticeable whenever you need to update your device. Sure, you can update most things through Legion Space, but even in the limited amount of time that I've had this device, I've had to go through the standard Windows update process to make sure everything was up to date, like the AMD graphics drivers. I couldn't play Battlefield 6 without updating them, but I couldn't update them through Legion Space. I had to do it through Windows. So that was a whole hurdle, and it was actually a huge hurdle on the ROG Xbox Ally X because I didn't know you had to do it through Windows. I thought you could do it through the Xbox full screen experience, but you couldn't. So it's just kind of a mess in that sense that you've got to update on like 4 different launchers, realistically like 2, but still. Actually, it's 3 on this device. You've got to update through Legion Space, through Windows, and through the Xbox full screen experience because that is available on this device. So if you want to update that, you've got to update it through there. Same thing, even with the ROG Xbox Ally X, you've got to update through Armory Crate, through Xbox, and through Windows. It's a mess, and hopefully that gets changed eventually, but still. Now the good news is, there is some good news. The pretty decent Xbox full screen experience is now available on the Legion Go 2, and at some point soon you should be able to launch it on startup so you can get that pretty smooth console-like experience that you have on the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X. Now that isn't the only launcher that you can have run on startup. In fact, this comes with Legion Space on on startup right out of the box. So when you first turn it on, you don't see the Windows desktop. Instead, you see Legion space. However, the Windows desktop is still running underneath. The difference with the Xbox full screen experience is that if you have it launched directly into that, the Windows desktop never loads, so you do save some system memory, which is nice. If you go to the Windows desktop, it turns that all back on, all those little background tasks that you don't want. But if you boot right into the Xbox full screen experience, you should get a smoother experience. But as of this moment, I wasn't able to get the full screen experience to launch on startup without using a different app. It's just not available yet. At least maybe for me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but everything I saw online says that I didn't. While this is absolutely still a Windows PC, there are more options now than there's ever been in the past to make this a much smoother gaming experience. It's still not the best though when you have to use the desktop, and for this device you do have to use the desktop. Now unfortunately none of this really will prevent inevitable game crashes here and there, but that's just PC gaming for you, so get used to it. But now let's talk about the industrial design and ergonomics. The Legion Go is big, like really big. Not only do you have that 8.8-inch display, but in order to house that, this device has to be pretty large. In fact, it's also thicker than the original Lenovo Legion Go and weighs in at around 2 pounds. It's a hefty boy, and not for the faint of heart. And I'll be honest with you, it can get heavy after long play sessions if you're not holding it in a way where it's kind of supported.
Hey, yo!
That said, Lenovo has greatly improved the ergonomics of the Go 2. It's significantly more comfortable in the hand than the previous generation. Rather than sharply rounded edges on an almost flat grip, you've got a nice rounded contour that fits nicely in the palm, and it feels really good. Is it as comfortable in the hand as the Xbox Ally X's game controller grips? Definitely not, but it's still one of the more comfortable devices that I've ever tried. I have medium-ish hands, and I still find this device to be literally a handful. I think for anyone with smaller hands, this device might be a bit unwieldy.
What do you mean by that?
Next up, let's talk about a feature that I doubt that I will use outside of the review period of this device, and that is the fact that the Lenovo Legion Go 2, like the original Go, does have removable controllers, one of which can be used as a vertical mouse. This mouse setting is called FPS mode and can be toggled on and off with this little button next to the optical sensor on the bottom of the right controller. Unlike Switch 2 Joy-Cons, these controllers don't make a great case for being detachable. They don't offer that incredible or precise motion control of the Joy-Cons, and even if they did, barely any games would properly support that controller layout anyway, so it wouldn't be something I'd even want on a PC gaming handheld. I mean, I guess it'd be nice. I guess one situation where you might find this being useful if you're not using the mouse mode is that you don't have to support the whole weight of the handheld in your hand. You can kind of put it on something and play your game like this. That might be a plus for you if you have trouble holding the device for a long period of time. That's really the only other use case that I could think of. Well, sure, I guess it's a neat trick to have a transforming gaming PC with a built-in mouse. I'd prefer to have a more standard form factor, one that doesn't feel a bit creaky when I twist it. Also, I should mention that taking the controllers on and off is not the most pleasant experience in the world. It doesn't have that nice sort of clicky experience like you have on the Switch 2 or even the original Switch. The buttons to remove these physical controllers don't have much feedback. They're kind of mushy, so you don't really know when you're clicking them enough to pull the controllers off. These controllers are also chunkers. These are big boys, and they're also a pain in the butt to get back on. Now, one positive that may or may not have been inspired by the Switch is the kickstand in the back. It's fully adjustable and will stay at whatever angle that you put it, and it's proven to be very useful for me whenever I plug in accessories or even an Ethernet cable to download games or a keyboard and a mouse. So this is something that I probably will use again, and I guess, sure, if you want to play this on an airplane and you don't want to hold the weight of it, you can set this up on the kickstand on the tray table and you're good to go. But hey, like I said, after this review is live, I doubt that I'll be removing the controllers anytime soon. So other than the occasional creak, whenever I frustratedly grip this controller because I'm pissed off because of some game that I'm playing that I suck at, the removability of the controllers doesn't bother me. Something that may bother some people though is the button layout on the right side. Since this controller is meant to be removed and used as a vertical mouse, the buttons need to work in both orientations. Consequently, you have 2 programmable buttons underneath your palm when you're holding this device in the standard handheld orientation. Also, the joystick, it rests in your palm when you're using it as a mouse, so neither one is perfect. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but it definitely was something that I had to get used to when I first held the device. But now that I've been playing this for a week, I don't even really feel these buttons in my palm anymore. Now, in addition to these 2 buttons on the right side, you've got this scroll wheel and this 3rd programmable button. The scroll wheel, I don't know if it actually works in games outside of when you have it in mouse mode. Even in the button mapping setting, when it's in handheld mode, it doesn't let you actually set anything for the scroll wheel, which is weird. I feel like you should be able to do something with that, but apparently not. Yeah, like see, there's no button mapping option for the scroll wheel. You can, for some reason, button map the buttons that are in your palm, but not the scroll wheel, which you literally can touch with your finger and use while you're playing games in handheld mode. I don't understand that at all. Over on the left side, you do have 2 rear programmable buttons, but because this side isn't designed to be a mouse, it has a much more traditional feel. The face buttons are pretty standard. You've got X, Y, A, B. They're all pretty clicky, feel pretty good. The D-pad is pretty standard and is decent for rolls. You've got Hall effect thumbsticks, which I like, but I honestly prefer the thumbsticks on the ROG Xbox Ally X. These just feel a bit too slippery. I don't know if that's the right word. Not the pad itself, but the movement. It just feels like there's not enough tension behind them. They feel a little too easy to move. I don't know, I just don't like the feel of them as much. They're also thinner too, so they don't feel as beefy. On either side of the screen, you've got your menu and view buttons, along with your Legion Space and quick setting buttons. On the bottom left-hand side, you've got two more similar buttons. One is a desktop shortcut, and one is a page view button. On the bottom right side, you've got the surprisingly large and genuinely useful touchpad. The more that I've used the Legion Go 2, the more that I've used this touchpad, specifically when moving my cursor on the Windows desktop. It's not perfect, but it's decent. There is no easy right click though. You can tap to left click, but to right click you actually have to long hold, which isn't always the best. I found that while it was somewhat useful in RTS games like Age of Empires, until I actually mapped a left click and a right click on actual physical buttons on the device, I still preferred using the touchscreen. All that said though, it is miles better than that tiny like 10mm by 10mm touch square of the Lenovo Legion Go S. That was wild. They even included that useless thing. That was terrible. On top, you've got a power button with a built-in fingerprint sensor, which works like 95% of the time. But to be fair, the other 5%, I don't think it's Lenovo's fault. I think it's Windows' fault. The placement, I'll be honest, is a bit far from where my finger naturally rests. Like it usually rests on the trigger, so I kind of have to slide my finger over here whenever I want to use it. That being said though, you only use it once every time you turn the device on, and that's it. So it's not a huge deal. As far as inputs go, you've got two USB 4 Type-C ports, which allow for 40 gigabit per second transfers, display out, power delivery. There's one on top and one on bottom. You can use them for external GPUs if you'd like. On the bottom, you've got a 3.5mm headphone jack and a micro SD card slot. And then getting back to the top, you may have noticed these relatively large speaker grills. Good news is they sound great and they get pretty loud. Bad news is they're top firing, so the people in front of you will hear your games great. Better than you even. Next to the speakers is the ventilation area. Fans do ramp up pretty quickly. You can set the fan curves, I believe, in the settings tab. Whatever they're doing for thermals in this device have done a good job of keeping it relatively cool during long play sessions for me, so I didn't have too many problems with the fans getting that loud. Like they came on quickly, but they never got jet engine loud. But now let's move on to the battery, which is what I consider to be one of the weak spots of the device. To be fair though, I think it's a weak spot of like almost every PC gaming handheld. The Legion Go 2 comes with a 74 watt-hour battery, which is fine, and also very similar to the ROG Xbox Ally X's 80 watt-hour battery. But even with that, it still feels like you don't get enough gaming time. I get these devices chug power, but on balanced settings, I was getting around 2.5 hours playing games like Forza and Battlefield. If I cranked up settings and bumped up the TDP, then I was getting 2 hours or less on some of the more intensive games. Now playing my NBA or my GM mode on 2K, making trades and simming seasons, I would get around 3 hours, sometimes even 4. I'm not sure why it varied, but it did. But realistically, that shouldn't take much processing power, so I don't know if that's a great stat for you or one you even want to know, but if you do a lot of that, that's how much time you should expect from your Lenovo Legion Go 2. So, is all this power, size, and OLEDness worth the $1,100 to almost $1,500 price tag? Well, in my opinion, if you have the money to spend and you want the best of the best, then yes. Absolutely. The Legion Go 2 is a top-of-the-line gaming handheld and gives you the best of what's available in performance, screen size, and immersion. It's an absolutely incredible device. However, there are other devices out there that will also give you great gaming experiences for less. An obvious example would be the ROG Xbox Ally X. It's $999. It also has a Z2 Extreme, but it's got a smaller screen and less RAM. If you're trying to get something that's still new but cheaper, you can get the Lenovo Legion Go S SteamOS Z1 Extreme version. I think it comes in at like $850 or $900. It's got really good performance for the price point. There are also older devices. If you want to go a couple years older and maybe spend even less on a used one, you can get the ASUS ROG Ally X or even the older Lenovo Legion Go, which still has a Z1 Extreme and still performs pretty well. All of these options and more are excellent and they cost less. The most surprising alternative though, which I haven't mentioned yet, is the Steam Deck OLED. While older and much less powerful, the screen is gorgeous, and because so many games are optimized for it, it can actually run some games as well as the Lenovo Legion Go 2. The biggest pro though is the fact that the top of the line version is only $649, and that's brand new. You can get a used one easily for cheaper. Now compared to the $1,349 1TB Z2 Extreme Legion Go 2, that's a bargain. That's less than half. So again, if you want the best of the best, then yes, the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is worth it. But hey, if you're more budget conscious, there are still a ton of other excellent options out there that are significantly cheaper that may not run AAA games at as high frame rates, but still give you a very similar gaming experience overall. But hey, at this point, I would love to know your thoughts on the Lenovo Legion Go 2 in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.